Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to teach you how to paint a self-portrait. Now because it is a very long process, I have divided it into 6 stages. And in this video I'm going to demonstrate the stage 2, how to draw the guidelines for the face, and stage 3, defining light and shadows. So let's get started. In the first stage of self-portrait, we're going to paint our background with 2 of your favorite and chosen colors, however that you wish to paint your background. If you are more interested to learn more about the introduction to self-portrait, there's another video that I made that I'm going to leave the link down below in the description box, so you can go and watch that video and learn more about it. Here's the reference photo that I chose for this project. I'm making this video for beginner learners, and I strongly recommend that you choose a reference photo that is covering your full face and not a semi-profile or profile of your face. This makes it much easier to learn everything about painting a full face and all the rules and techniques that you need to learn. Also, when you're choosing a reference photo, make sure that there is a good lighting on your face and that you can see all your facial features clearly. Now in this photo, my head is slightly tilted and I'm going to keep it straight. So I'm going to paint my head straight and I'm just going to ignore the tilted head to just simplify it and make it easier to demonstrate. Also, make sure that your photo has some facial expression, at least. Like I have a very small smile here. Maybe you want to choose a photo that you also have a smile, and if you have a bigger smile with teeth showing up, that's also fine. You just have to learn to paint teeth as well. Once you finish painting your background and it's dried, you can draw a line right in the middle of your painting surface or your canvas. It doesn't have to be a perfect line, as long as you can see that it is dividing your painting surface into 2 equal halves. It will be a wise idea to print out your reference photo so you can make guidelines on your reference photo. In order to find out where you can start now from drawing your face and the guidelines of the facial features, let's take a look at your reference photo and all the negative spaces around it. To simplify my work and my painting, I'm going to draw a rectangle around my face, just creating a frame. You can use a viewfinder to make very clear edges for yourself and the painting that you're going to paint with the size of the canvas that you're using. And then I'm going to take a look at the negative space around my face and find out where my head starts and where my face ends. That would be my chin, like these lines. You see, this is how much space is around my face. So here's my face. I'm going to draw a line right in the middle of my canvas. And once I define where my head starts and where my face ends, I'm going to draw 2 lines. And I'm going to divide this space between where the head starts and where the face ends into 3 equal parts. Now I want you to pay a close attention to this stage. It can be very easy to get confused with it. There are different methods for drawing the face. Some people start right from the eyes, some people start from the hair. It doesn't matter, but the method that I'm going to use, I'm going to call it the nose method. In the nose method, we're going to use the height of your nose as a measuring guide. Technically, we should be able to fit 3 noses within the height of our face. Now this can be true for most faces. However, some people have longer noses, some people have shorter noses, but try it. Also, depending to how your reference photo has been captured, this size and dimensions can also change. For example, in the reference photo that I am using, my head is slightly looking towards ground. So it seems like that my nose is much taller than the space between the bottom of my nose and to the end of my chin, which is supposed to be equal if I was looking straight forward. But at this stage, I'm not going to take this into consideration because it's just going to make this slightly complicated. If you can, make sure that you just consider it and make your drawing lines accordingly. And don't be afraid to always check all the dimensions and the lines that you're putting on your canvas. You can use your brush to do so. Just by using your eyes, you don't need to have a ruler for this. This is also great practice for developing your observational skills and enhancing your memory. Do not be afraid to go over the lines as many times as you need because these are just guidelines and we will be painting over, and this is just one of the layers. And of course, it takes a bit of practice. Once you define your 3 primary lines, you know where your eyebrows are, and then based on those you can find where your eyes are. You know where your nose ends and where your chin ends. If you look at the space between the bottom of your nose and your chin and divide it to 2 equal halves, you will find out that that line will be your bottom lip, and you can draw a guideline there for your lips. Now let me tell you about the rule for the eyes. We should be able to fit one eye between our 2 eyes. And generally, there are about 5 eyes that we should be able to fit right across our face. But if your reference photo is a full face that is looking at you, you won't be able to see all 5 eyes fitting in your face. But you should be able to fit half of an eye on the side of each of your eye. And in my reference photo, you can see that I can't fit one eye between my eyes. And because it's almost a semi-profile of my face, I am able to fit maybe 3/4 of another eye on the left side of my face, and on the right side, maybe less than a half of an eye. So I'm going to draw some guidelines to define where my eyes are exactly. At this point, I can also draw my eyes and maybe even make my pupils clear. Now, if I would draw a line right from the center of my eyes down, I should be able to define the width of my lips and the corners of my mouth. And this is where the upper lip is isolated from the lower lip. Now that I have defined the height and width of my face using the proportions of my eyes and nose, now I'm going to connect all the dots and create an oval shape for my face. Now take a look at your reference photo and spend some time to look at the form of your face. Some people have more oval looking face. Some others have more square shaped face. So make sure that you consider those forms and add it into your drawing at this stage. If you notice, I started my drawing right with the paint and brush. I just diluted some darker tone color with some water and I'm using my brush. And if you pay some attention to my hand, I'm holding the brush from the end of its handle, and that helps me to move my hand much easier and freer. Now I'm going to spend some time on defining each facial feature by looking at their form and trying to imitate that form. For example, look at my eyes and try to create this almond shape. And to define the shape of my nose and the side of my nose, I'm going to draw a line from the corner of my eyes perpendicular to the side of my nose on my reference photo. This way I will find out what is the width of my nose. Yours might be different, but always take a look at your reference photo and try to find relationships between your facial features by drawing lines that can help you to find relationship and proportions between different facial features. For example, this works for me, and I'm just drawing these lines on my reference photo. Now that I know the width of my nose, I'm going to spend some time on defining the form and shape of my nose. Now, the bottom of my nose and most noses looks like a top of a heart. So I just try to create that form here. Same thing almost applies to most lips. The upper lip also looks like a form of the top of a heart. Now if you're smiling like me here, make sure that you follow the smile rule, which means that the handle of the corner of your lips, your mouth, is going to go slightly higher, just like the smile emoji. I'm also going to define where my ear is by again drawing lines on my reference photo and see where it ends and where it starts to find out its height and finding out its form. For my hair, I'm going to draw my hairs right from its root. So from the top of my head, I'm just going to look at the form of my hair and I try to just create that form around my face. I'm also going to spend some time on defining where my shirt is and how my neck looks like. And then again going back to my facial features, trying to define everything even more clear this time, like adding my eyebrows and drawing other accessories like this head scarf that I have in my hair. And this is the end of our stage 2, how to draw the guidelines for your face. Remember, face is very complex, and in order to draw or paint anything of this complexity, it is absolutely important to know how to simplify everything, deconstruct and reconstruct it all over again by looking at a reference photo or by looking at the object or the person in front of you and painting from life. And the rule of using nose and eye, I find it the easiest one to remember when I am drawing or painting a face. And checking all the angles from your reference photo. For example, checking where your hair is falling and what angle it is following, and so on. However, if you find this rule complex and confusing, you can always go back to using the grid and drawing a grid right on your reference photo and just using that to help you define the facial features and your colors. But again, I do not recommend using a grid because it doesn't really help you to develop your observational skills, and whenever you're trying to draw or paint from life, you will be still quite confused and not sure how to find proportions and measures. Also, during any of these stages, make sure to always once in a while take a few steps away from your painting or drawing, at least 3 feet away from your easel, so you will be able to view your work more clearly from distance. Let's move on to our stage 3. In stage 3, we start to define the light and shadows, creating the brightness and contrast. Remember that every area that is concave, hollow, or below the light is going to attract the shadows, and those are the areas that you need to cover with darker tones. For the darker tones, you can just dilute some of your darker colors like ultramarine blue or phthalo blue, and you can also add some crimson red to it. Or if you don't want to use these colors, you can just dilute a tiny bit of black with ultramarine blue and cover those areas that are concave, like around the eyes, under the chin, nose and ear holes, as well as anywhere that shadow is falling based on your reference photo. And also if you have dark colored hair like mine, you can cover those areas with your dark tone as well. I have my shirt here is also dark, so I'm going to cover that as well. Now, in order to find the dark and light much easier, there's a technique that I'm going to call it squinting technique. If you squint your eyes, you will minimize the amount of light that your eyes are receiving in order to see things. And that way, it becomes very clear where the light is falling and where the dark is falling. Everything all of a sudden turns into black and white. So you can use this technique if you have difficulty figuring out how you can define your contrast. Now that I have covered all the dark areas, now I'm going to start looking at the light areas. Everywhere that is convex and sticking out, like my forehead, my chin, my cheeks, and my lips, tip of my nose, and everywhere else that light is falling on it, I'm just going to cover it with white, straight out of tube. Now, of course, at this stage, do pay some attention to how much light is falling on different areas. And do not cover all of your face with white. Just put enough to distinguish the difference between the light and dark. Here we go. So that was the end of our stage 3 of painting a self-portrait with acrylic paints. And I also need to mention that in between any of these stages, make sure to always take some break. It is very common to get lost during a creative process, so it's very important that you take some break and continue your work with fresh eyes. Please watch next video to learn about the stage 4, 5, and 6 of how to paint a self-portrait for beginners. Thank you so very much for your attention and watching me, and goodbye.
Gorgeous day.